Nice to be here, everyone. Thank you for joining. It's we are thrilled to be a part of this. My name is Ole Thomasen, and as Andrew said, I am a resident here in Denmark. And Garrett, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, and so I'm Garrett. I'm a research specialist at LEGO Foundation and near lookalike to Ola. So don't get us confused. We almost went with the same background today, so we thought we'd reduce some of the confusion. All right, thank you.
So everybody, just before we get started, I would like to just set the stage a bit. So if everybody who's up for it, please put on your cameras. So one of the things that we have been experiencing, everybody, over the last 6 months or so, is how difficult it is to create relationships online. So for those of you who would like to, please turn on your cameras. And before we get started, I would actually like to do a small exercise. This is really what we will be trying to put into the session today. That we will try to play a bit. We'll try to get some tools and tricks in the backpack for how to cope with these circumstances around that emerged through the. Or I would like us together to try to empty our working memory. So what I'd like you to do is to get a piece of paper. It could be a notebook, or it could be a blank piece of paper, whatever, and a pen. And what we will do now is that we will actually make a physical hard drive. So we will just type the word hard drive on the top of our paper. And what I would like you to do is take a minute and just put in all your thoughts, what you have done previously before this meeting, or what you will have to shop when we are done, or the visit you will have to do in the weekend, or whatever thought you might have in your working memory at this time. Please put it on the paper. We'll take a minute from now and just scribbling all these kind of thoughts down together to empty our working memory. All right, a minute.
You're more than welcome to draw pictures if words are escaping you right now too.
All right, that was just about a minute or so. And what we can do now is that this hard drive, this is actually super important stuff that we have here. But for now, we will actually be able to put it on hold for the next 90 minutes or so. So what we can do is just flip over the paper, get a blank piece of paper, and now we have a clean working memory. So our random access memory is clean. We're ready. We are here. And Garrett and I would love to have a discussion with you over the next hour or so, where we can discuss how this emerged. So please feel free to put down some questions on your new working memory page, and also feel free to use the chat if you prefer. But we will get back to those kind of reflections and shared shared Q&As later on. And we will also have about halfway in, we will have a halftime break where we can connect and reflect and hopefully refill some coffee cups and stuff like that. So with no further ado, let's dive in. Who are we? Who are the LEGO Foundation? Where do we come from? Well, we are placed in Denmark. We are a corporate foundation, a part of the LEGO family, and we and we owe 25% of the LEGO group, where our fundings come from. So we are a part of a big enterprise where we have a lot of different connections. We have obviously the BRIC company, but the LEGO Foundation is really about learning through play, which is not necessarily connected to the LEGO or LEGO BRIC specifically. But before we get into that, let us dive into some exercises, because we know this is early Friday morning for somebody like Garrett, and it is going into the afternoon for the rest of us. So what I'd like you to do now is to do a short exercise with me. It is called Super You Poses. So we will find our inner superheroes. And so what we do now is clear some, let's clear some space here, just to, I don't know, not thinking this through quite, but what we will do, I don't know if this this will work. We will do an exercise from our social emotional learning MOOC that we have been putting out together with Future Learn. And it, as I said, it's called Super You Poses. So what I would like you to encourage you to do, first of all, is like stand tall like a superhero, right? Take in some deep belly breath. Make your belly big, like mine, not necessarily as big as mine, but big, deep breathing. Okay, and what we'll do next is we will activate our first superpower. I really, really, really hope that there's somebody on the other end of the screen doing this together with me. But we will activate our flying superpowers. So what we do now is that, like a bird, we will fly together, but we will do this by belly breathing. So when we take in our breath, we spread our wings and breathe out. Breathe in, stretch and breathe out. Oops. Breathe in and breathe out. Okay, this is really fun to do together with children as well. And the next superpower we will activate is our stretching superpower. So now we will stretch like we will fly to the moon. Stretch, stretch all the way up onto your tippy toes, all the way up. Remember to breathe, Garrett. Remember to breathe. Barely breathing. Otherwise, we'll drop like a stone in water. Oh. And down again. The last superpower is really to take a stand, like your favorite superhero, right? Find your inner superhero. Is it Superman, or is it Spider-Man, or is it whatever superhero or superpower you would like to embed and empower yourself with in this time of the day? And take again some deep breath and find that superpower. Ignite, infuse that superpower into the rest of your day and weekend and the rest of the year for that matter. Okay, so now we are ready to dive into this whole into the session actually, and into the content. And as I just mentioned, we are a part of the LEGO family. We have a shared we have a shared mission together with the rest of the LEGO entities, which is about inspiring and developing the builders of tomorrow. And we do this in a variety of different ways. And as a foundation, we have this steer and mission of learning through play and how that can empower children to be lifelong learners and creative in their ways of living. And finally, as we have seen over the years, this is also about like redefining what we mean when we're talking about play, and also about learning through play. And it's also about reimagining what learning look like. What kind of learning does the living in the 21st century skill environment look like, and how can play be that natural way of learning for children today? Yeah, we do this by supporting a range of different programs on the ground. We build evidence. Garrett is a part of our evidence team, and we try to create buy-in from all our different stakeholders to have a shared understanding of what we mean when we're talking about learning through play. So if we should dive into the conversation around play, so this is really, we hear this a lot, that play is really about enjoyment and recreation rather than just a second, rather than some serious business, right? This is something after the learnings comes the play. But what we really encourage people to do is to see how we can embed play into and as a natural way of learning. This is rather than should be with and serious and practical purposes. So play is really children's way of learn. This is their way of living in life. But what is more, rather than I just talk on you on this subject, let's try to dive into an exercise where we can share our reflections around this. So what I would encourage you to do now is take on out your second screen. It could be an iPad or a tablet or a phone or something. We'll also have Garrett will share the Padlet link in the chat. So what I will encourage you now to do is to take a minute, think about a great play experience that you have had. This could be recently, or it could be as a child, and try to reflect a bit about what kind of play experience, what was it that made it great. And we could try to build it with our office supplies around us, like paper, pens. We could do a drawing, take a picture of that, post it on the Padlet, or you could just type in a couple of words describing that experience. All right. So we'll take a couple of minutes, do stuff, build stuff, reflect within ourselves, and then share on the Padlet. All right. Yep. Brilliant. We'll get 3 minutes. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, if you follow the link, you're wondering how to add a little Padlet, down the bottom right, there will be a little plus symbol, so you can add your own little box, little clip. Go ahead. Brilliant. Sorry.
Great. So start building, start drawing, start describing, and then post it on the Padlet. And we will look into the Padlet together, and we'll get 3 minutes to create our play experience.
Hola.
Yeah.
Just while everyone's doing that, and there's a screen sharing message at the bottom of your screen. Would you mind clicking the hide button for me? If you can see that.
The what?
There's a screen sharing message at the bottom of your screen. Next to the stop sharing button, there's a button that says hide. Would you mind trying to click that for me? If you can see it. If not, don't worry about it.
I cannot see that.
That's okay.
Okay, I'll just share the Padlet screen.
And don't forget to click on the update in the top of your window if you want to be able to see what else is going on your own screen. The top middle of your screen, there should be a little gray box that says Padlet updated elsewhere, and you can hit the update and you'll see everybody else's work. Oh, look at that. Look at a puppy visitor. Nice. Ola, what year is that photo from that you posted?
Yeah, it's an old photo from, I don't know what it's called in English. In Denmark, we have this concept of højskole, which is not high school, but adult schooling programs. So this was really a picture from that experience. Bit old though.
Wait, so you say adult school, so does that mean that's in the future for you?
Huh?
You say adult school, does that mean that's in the future for you?
Hopefully not.
One of these days you'll become an adult?
Yeah.
Kidding.
Wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, this is cool. And just to give you a little bit of a foreshadowing too, we're going to be using some tools like this later in an activity. So we just wanted to not only talk about what we're doing with learning through play and the digital experience, but also how you can do it and how you can unlock some of this. Already you're seeing some opportunities to collaborate in different ways other than just a simple chat on the right. And we'll talk about that in more detail, but I just thought I'd foreshadow a little bit. Ooh, nice sketches.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, the Emperor's appeared.
Yeah, no kidding.
The dark side is
I'm
represented.
going to find my clone there. I like it.
Oh, so what is anybody, who is it that made the balloon? Would you be willing to speak up and elaborate more on that too? I mean, that's the thing, is we're not just limited to these visuals. You can,
Hello.
somebody was wearing a balloon costume. Yeah, Elizabeth.
Me.
That's awesome.
I found this yesterday in an old photo album, and what struck me was how bizarre it was as a costume. And I don't think this is my suggestion to go to school dressed up with balloons. This is my mum. So this is my mum saying, "Oh, what's a quick way to make a costume? Let's sew some balloons on your t-shirt."
That's awesome.
Little did she know, a decade or two later, that movie Up would come out and you'd be like, you're one of the lead characters for a Disney movie. That's fabulous.
Please keep posting stuff into the Padlet. We can keep it open. We can put thoughts and ideas in here. But I'll take you a bit further down the line. Just stop sharing this. All right. Let me see. Can you see? Can you see the? No, I have to share again. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So all these kind of, if you, I'm sure that when we look across all these kind of play experiences, that we'll have a idea of there's some similarities between each of them, and we can see something be put up again and again. And what we asked our learning network to do was really to try to take a look to see if we can see some characteristics around these kind of playful experiences. And for me, I really had like danger and danger play as being what comes to my mind when I'm thinking about these kind of playful, powerful play experiences. Mm-hmm. And the actively engaging and socially interactive play is really I can see a lot of your experiences is something that you do together with others. It's not necessarily that it has to be like that, but socially interactive play is often a key part of people's strongest play memories. And also, like, things to be joyful is not necessarily to have a laugh all the time, but it's really about find it meaningful, and through the meaningfulness creates that kind of joy and logic. And then we have the iterative nature of play, the pretend play or doing over and over again, and the meaningful aspect of learning to play. So as it says, this is not like something that is made out of stone. This is really the characteristics can ebb and flow and is super dynamic from play experience to play experience. But I'm sure that when you look at these kind of 5 characteristics, that you'll see, oh yeah, my experience had that kind of characteristic very well involved in that experience. Okay, so the best way to understand this kind of unique nature of play is, like, I'm sure if we all can we do a drum roll, Garrett? Can we just do a drum roll?
Let's do a drum roll. We got something cool coming up here.
Okay. It is by playing, right? So let's have a play experience together, and then we can reflect a bit upon that later on. I'll share now. We will have to do. I'll share a screen again with you, and on that screen you will find a QR code. So again, we'll have to use our second screens. Share, yes. And here is the QR code. And what I'd like you to do now is encourage you to take follow the QR code, and in there you'll find a very brief and easy build. We will build a doc. And
this you have to do with the phone. So just so you know, I'm not going to be putting a link into the chat. So this is the reason why this is a little bit different. Sorry, Ola, if I'm interrupting. I'm just trying to elaborate on this. Is if you scan this code, it allows your phone to connect to this screen that you're looking at here in this preview. Go ahead, Ola. Sorry.
No, so follow the QR code and make some builds. Different kinds of docs. You will get like 3 minutes. Okay.
Okay. How are we doing, Ola? Is everybody doing okay?
I get an error message on mine now. And
okay. Here's an example of what it takes to do distance learning, right? Troubleshooting. Okay, so there's a start.
So James changed that today. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like James did some tweaking in the background.
If you can access it through your computer, it looks like it's not working. No, exactly. Okay, so sorry about that, guys. But I think that we'll have to do this a bit later. I'll see if I can fix that in our break, and then we'll have the
skip ahead and come back
a bit later on. Yeah. Garrett, will you take it from here?
Yeah, I'll take it from here.
Let's imagine that we have made like a bunch of crazy good-looking ducks.
Let me go get an example.
Yeah.
So essentially what just happened, well, uphill difficulties, is that we were, if you can see my screen now, I don't know if I can get highlighted somehow. We have these pieces of Lego bricks that look like at any point could be a duck. So what we allow you to do, some of you may be very familiar with this activity or heard about it. But what essentially it is that we have, I think it's what, 600 million different configurations that you can make of these ducks. And we usually do this within an activity in person. But what we were trying to set up is a digital version of this, in which you can build a duck like this. And then that beautiful digital pond background that Ola was showing, what it does is it allows you to create it on your phone. So you, instead of having it done in a physical space here, we do it digitally. And then what we do is we send that to, when you hit enter and you change, you're able to like change the shape of the eyeball and give it a custom quack sound and everything like that. And then your duck magically appears in that little pond screen on Ola's iPad. And so what the purpose of that activity, just to kind of, we'll get back to it, but I'm just kind of giving you a background on why we did this and why we wanted to put this into the experience, was that this is very similar to a divergent thinking task, or something that we use in creativity research to evaluate the creative potential of children and adults. So what we encourage you to do is, in this images of all these ducks over here that we're sharing now, what it allows you to do is to kind of unlock, not unlike the cleaning of your hard drive, is to take your ideas about what a duck is. Now, many of us will start off with a very traditional view where we make a duck that looks exactly like a duck. And then if you look at these examples on the screen, you're going to start seeing ducks that are made upside down. You're going to see ducks that have their head turned, or maybe they have their feet are off to the side. And what we're trying to get at is, how do we encourage you to stop thinking about things as traditional or conventional? So it's not just, here's what a duck always looked like. There's many ways that in which a duck can look. And so what we're trying to get at here is not to just conceptually, and I'm doing it right now to make up for it, to make up for this technology having a little bit of a blip. And it looks like we do have a link over in the chat now. So I'm not sure if it's working for y'all on your PC. I'm gonna try to do it while I'm doing this. And what's interesting is, let me just pause for a moment. When we were talking with Danny about the IT needed for this to happen, she inquired, well, what does this take? Is there any way this could fail? And Ola and I, and many of our colleagues at the Lego Foundation, not only like to take on these challenges, but are also expecting that some of these things are to happen. And so you will see that there's going to be accidents. You'll see that things will fall apart and break. But that's actually what we're talking about when we discuss learning through play. And so it's, what do you do when those opportunities come and break and things don't work? So I don't see it working on that link now, but here's what I'm getting at with back to the duck activity. It allows us to think about things differently. And by doing so, not just by talking about it, but by actually doing it through learning through play, using our hands and using our minds-on activities, hands-on, minds-on activities to actually go through these experiences. And what happens, and yep, so Ola's jumping ahead, which is perfect, is that what we're actually doing, and when we usually do this activity, we say, build as many ducks as you can in, let's say, 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And what's really cool is that background of that placid lake where the ducks will start to show up. Within minutes, if you have a room of 100 people, there's going to be thousands of those ducks populating and quacking all over the place. And we've also built into that is, we start to look at, we do an analysis, a live analysis, to say, okay, almost everybody built the traditional version of the duck, which pretty much looks just like this. Okay, so you will see that 90%, 80, 90% of everybody will have this traditional duck. And then what happens is they start to diverge and start to come up, everybody will start coming up with different ones. Some people will jump right into wacky ducks that are built upside down, or may even have their feet on top of their head or something silly. That's awesome, right? And what happens here is it gives us an opportunity to not just talk about the ideas of learning through play and some of these holistic skills, which I'm going to mention in a moment, but it actually allows us to have an experience from which everybody can relate to. It's no longer an abstract idea, it's something that we just did. And so this is something, not only do we find, even though this has been a little bit of a misstep here, that's fine. What we encourage you all, and what we do at the foundation, because of the pandemic and because the world has gone into distance learning is to find clever ways to keep that hands-on experience alive, okay? So obviously things are going to fall apart, but that's okay. Here in this slide you see over here is you get to reflect on all of those things that happened in the building of ducks, okay? So imagine now that you just built 16 different ways that a duck could exist, right? We can have one where he's now sleeping. You go through this whole process. In here is a multitude of different cognitive functions, possibly even emotional functions, in which we can reflect on now as having a reference for everybody to talk about them specifically. Now with children, this gets really difficult because their ability to self-report on these behaviors usually doesn't come online until they're 6, 7, 8 years old. But it does provide an opportunity for them to think and focus on these abilities to say, oh, okay, when you're building these ducks, what happened? And sometimes they'll say, well, I didn't want to make a duck that just looked like a standing duck. I thought, well, maybe I could make this duck fall asleep, or maybe I could tell a story around this duck. And when we do that, you'll see some of these words here, for example, executive functioning. Now they're going to be able to start moderating and start thinking about what they're doing, as this is an activity that isn't just them doing the activity, it's them thinking about what they can do with this activity. Sometimes it's about them representing something, telling a story. Many times with like Ola, we're talking about working memory to say, oh, what does a duck look like? Okay, if I can remember when I was walking along the path yesterday, I saw a duck all nestled along the beach or along the shoreline. I thought he was sleeping. So you're hitting some of these things that are happening. You also have this cognitive flexibility, which is a part of creativity. There's an emotional regulation. Sometimes you're thinking, oh man, I really feel sorry for those ducks. It's really cold right now. So what are we gonna do? Or sometimes children are gonna go through, and adults as well. And let me just bear with me for just a minute as I regress back, is that sometimes adults are having problems with these creative processes as well. And in fact, it's not something that goes away as you get older. We may get better. We may get better at playing that musical instrument. Elizabeth may get better at drawing the picture of her costume and wearing balloons. It may get more refined, but she's still going to go through some of these emotional struggles to say, why can't I do this today? Why can't I see things? Why can't I create this? Or why am I having difficulty solving problems? The more and more we engage with activities like this, it becomes less abstract. It becomes something that we build almost inertia or momentum to say, look at, I've just built 16 different ducks. And now I know that I can come up with different ducks. Why can't I take that and find 16 different ways to solve some problems at home? Okay. And so what I'm getting at is this is one of the powerful pieces of the Lego Foundation, this learning through play, is it's not just conceptual and it's not just for children. This is something that we can develop throughout the lifespan. And now, if I may, Ola, if we can go to the next slide, I think this is where it starts to get pretty fun too, is we talk about learning through play at the Lego Foundation. And if we can go to that next one with the holistic skills, Ola, that'd be there. Thank you. Is yes, we believe that the best way to learn is through learning through play. But on the other side, we're trying to figure out is, well, not figure out, our thinking is that it's not just about using learning through play to understand certain topics or subjects, if you will. That's important, and we're not going to dismiss that at all. But we also think that there's an important skill development piece that comes from learning through play. And and it's not too dissimilar from 21st century skills, C's, whatever theory that you like. But for us, we look at it as holistic skills, and that we are trying to develop the whole child. And not just the whole child when they're in childhood, but as something as a skill that they can develop throughout the course of their life. And for us, we've looked at this and identified 5 holistic skills. And what's great about these holistic skills is they're not just little islands of skills. They all interact with each other. Okay, and in a moment, I'm going to go back to the duck, which again, I hope you can try to imagine that you built, 4 of these or 3 of these or 16 of these ducks. But what we do through that experience is we start to see that you're developing these different skills. And the 5 that we have listed here, one is creativity. Okay, so there's many skills. We talked about it in that list around those words around the brain a moment ago. Some of those are flexible thinking. Some of those are being able to take the perspective of other people, some problem solving skills, some self-expression. Many of these things allow us to be creative, okay? And through activities like the duck and many of these other learning through play activities, mind you, they don't need to be these these fun little games with Lego bricks. They could be any lesson that you have in your curriculum that you can turn into a learning through play experience. And we'll talk about that in a bit too. But then there's also, if I may, I'm going to go a little clockwise in this grid of the 5 holistic skills, this social piece, right? So what happens even with this duck, and you're going to trust me for a bit because we didn't just have this experience, is what's cool about this too is you're going to look over your shoulder, or you're going to see these ducks go whack, 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 and they're going to land in the pond, and you're going to see somebody who managed to turn their duck upside down. Build it here. And they're literally going to have a duck that's built. The studs are no longer on the top, they're on the bottom. Somebody managed to do this in a very different way. And what that is from a social perspective is it inspires us to try and see things differently. Okay, so one, it becomes social. We talk about it, we inspire, we look at each other. And by doing so, it allows us to develop these skills in order to learn through play together. Okay, learning through play is not, and many of you probably already know this if you have children, sometimes it looks solitary and many times it's children playing with each other. I have a 5-year-old who's in kindergarten. Before the distance learning started, she hadn't seen another child in 5 months. And it's been amazing to see her go from just hanging out with adults and being a little insecure to now she's learning how to solve problems by playing with children. It could be them playing football some days. It could be them working on an activity, or it could be just them sitting in the grass and talking about what they're feeling, okay? So these learning to play opportunities are social as well. Physical, like I said, many times it's not just about us thinking about things. It's about developing these physical skills. It could be playing a sport. It could be developing the dexterity of building something, but it's not, school doesn't necessarily need to be a cerebral event or a series of cerebral events in which we're just trying to create a machine that can pass tests at the end of school. That will happen. But if you infuse it with learning through play, you're going to be allowing for this physical component as well. Okay, now emotional, I've talked about it, and I think it's really important. And I think Ola jumping into it right off the bat to say at the Lego Foundation, we created a social emotional learning MOOC in order to support parents and children right now at this time of the pandemic to deal with all of this confusion. This is not something that's going to go away, and it had happened before the pandemic came around, is that we want children to be able to develop their emotional skills. Not only to be able to identify the emotions that they have, but to be able to figure out that they can do something with them, and that they can actually help other people with their emotions as well. And you can see how quickly that piece links to the social piece, or maybe even a physical piece, to when you play a sport with somebody, it can help you process some emotions. Some of these creative activities can allow you to process emotions as well. And then lastly, when I think this is more of the traditional sense, and I'm probably preaching to the choir here a bit, this cognitive skill, many times it's not just about can we get you to pass a test, but that we can, through learning through play, get you to actually take these ideas, build things, tinker with ideas, build those engineering concepts in STEM that people want you to understand, but you're not just reading them in a book, you're actually using them, okay? And so that's another piece of this holistic skill development. Now, I think, if I may, Ola, I'm gonna jump into our children, technology, and play paper. We have a video. It's mostly just kind of a video that's going through, and oh, somebody made a duck. Nice, Sue. Here's a little video now. We're gonna let you with these videos. We're gonna have another video after this. I think there's one more video. We're gonna post the link in the chat here. So how about we just take a minute for you to look into the chat over here, click on this Vimeo, because many times this is far less complicated than the duck, and you can have many problems with playing a video, having the audio and video not syncing. So if you may, we're going to take roughly 1 minute and 14 seconds or 1.5 minutes. If you can click on that Vimeo link down in your chat and watch that, and then we're going to come back and talk about children, technology, and play.
Do you have the screen back, Gert?
Yeah, give them a
Cool.
time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. So talking about a study that we did, many things that we do at the many of the things that we do at the foundation is to work as partnerships. So what we'll do is we'll work with other academics. We may work with ministries of education. We go into refugee camps. We do a lot of outreach, many times, not just to proselytize what we want out in the world, but to learn and adapt to what we understand is actually happening in the world. So this study, one of the things that we've found is how we want to look at distance learning as an evolving world of education right now. And it's not just about formal education, and that we are now actually being forced into something that at the foundation, many of us were looking for. In fact, we felt as one of the strengths in education is to take these different worlds, this formal education, what goes on at home, and looking at informal learning environments such as libraries, museums, tinker spaces, maker spaces, and bring the best of what they can offer and see how they can influence each other. Okay, so now if you look at this slide deck here, you see that we talk about digital toys or games, how they can, instead of challenging them as something to say, oh, I don't want my child to be influenced by too much game playing. Yes, of course, moderation is an important piece, but what we're looking at is how do we actually take advantage of these opportunities and embrace them. In fact, many times, as I mentioned, my child who's young, many of her peers are playing video games now. And so if we take that away, sometimes they lose that social capacity. But what I'm getting at is there's many, many different ways in which we can connect through play. It's not just about digital toys. Sometimes it's these physical toys, ways that people can play together. There's virtual reality games. There's digital games that allow us through GPS and augmented reality. There's many different, very cool ways that we can leverage technology. Okay. And
I think
also,
what struck me when we saw this research piece come to life was out of these mapped like 7 key ways of engaging with digital play, only one of these 7 was really about creating and the power of creating with and creating digital artifacts and through digital fabrication technologies, or like how can we actually build that in from a very early stage? How can we let children try? I have this fantastic quote from Padlet talking about looking at computers as something like the way we look like on paint or clay or whatever physical play material, that this is what the technology can do for us, and it can actually extend. It's not just another way of doing what we usually do, but it's really a extension of our capabilities as human beings of expressing ourselves in new ways. I think that was quite interesting from the work that came out of that.
Yeah. And I think as a quick anecdote, I came to the foundation from working in academia and teaching university courses and research with 20-year-olds, millennials, if you will. And I was repeatedly amazed by when I would give them a simple task and freed them, a simple activity to say, hey, can you do a presentation, let's say on emotion regulation? And I said, you can use whatever media format that you'd like, just to free them up a little bit. And they would come back with these elaborate, some even came back with video games that they created over the weekend. Or they would take a video and they would create some sort of amazing script with them and their friends that they would make using their iPhone in the course of a day or an afternoon. So like Ola is saying, this is not just something where it's passive. That screen doesn't need to be a mesmerizing square in which they stare. That's this balance that we're trying to talk about, that there's this ability to take these, to find a mixed diet of using the tech, but also using the tech to build things, okay? And at the same time, if you can find ways to encourage them to use technology, but also build things with their hands, that's a really magnificent and elegant balance to strive for. I think another thing that we're looking at too is how do adults get involved in this piece? This is a really tricky part. Any of you parents out there to say, how do you keep up with the technology that these children are playing with? From what is Among Us to what is Minecraft, to figure out what these things are. And I know that it asks a lot, but sometimes it's just the simple activity of you trying to engage in these platforms with these children, even if you're not very good at it, even if your child laughs at your efforts, you're still learning, you're still trying to understand the world in which they're living, because it's not, putting that genie in the bottle is not going to happen at some level. Of course, moderation is something that we keep talking about, is what is that healthy diet of physical and digital. But yeah, Ola, were you going to add to that?
Yeah, it was just a private anecdote. It was me on Roblox. I just connected to Roblox together with the kids, and it's just it's first of all, it's so much fun for all of us, right? To explore this, and I'm so bad at it, but it's really engaging and fun to do together, and letting the children actually be the driver of
Yes.
of how we approach things. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's a great point.
So I'll share my Roblox initials or a name, and we can connect on Roblox afterwards.
Yeah, and if you have any doubt about this, there is an extensive amount of literature in developmental psychology and educational psychology about the role of children influencing the learning of adults. And so it's not just a unidirectional, children learn when adults guide them through play to understand things. Many times it's parents can get in the way of that learning. And it's not that you're to feel bad, but when you engage with play with children, you will be shocked. And the literature is bearing this out, is how much they can influence your ability to be flexible in your thinking. Because many times as we age, we tend to think about the solutions that worked for us either last week or a year ago, and we will wear that solution out until it doesn't work anymore. Children will break us from that habit sometimes and say, okay, well, that's the way that you've done things. And it's not just old dog, new tricks, but it's a very active thing where children can allow you to see the world in different ways if you engage in learning through play. And I think this next slide, Ola, if we can get to the three balls here around, so these children are acquiring a wide range of skills through this digital play. And again, this is a reference to that video we showed a moment ago that talked about the study that we collaborated on, is that yes, there are these holistic skills that we talked about, and I tried to highlight, but there's also digital skills that are happening here, right? So, I mean, my 5-year-old knows how to navigate some things. It's amazing to me. So it's not just about how do you, what skills develop, but also being literate in some ways with the digital world. And I don't know about you, but I'm seeing this world changing so fast. I'm an American and I live in the US, and you see a lot of the social media and things and how it's impacting how adults are interacting with each other, how we may not be able to navigate these worlds as well as the children. I think it's an important piece for children and adults to be able to have the literacy to navigate this digital world, but also, and we don't want to leave it out. We have holistic skills, these digital skills, but also subject knowledge. Okay, so we're not trying to say that, oh, put children in front of Khan Academy or YouTube and let them just learn their own way. Yes, there is some of this digital space that allows them to access more information than ever before, but that you can leverage these tools in the classroom, in informal learning environments, in ways that they can still use these for traditional subjects, okay? So that we can learn more about what's going on. And it's not just that it's one or the other, and that these can actually support each other. Ola, do you have anything to say before we move into our next activity?
No, if I'm not able to share the link for the report, but it's in the, could you share the link in the chat, Garrett? For the
yes,
children.
I think it's
a quite comprehensive work done together with Sheffield University and the University of Johannesburg in the South Africa. It's for download on our website, and we'll share the link afterwards. Or never mind. We'll share later on. Okay, let's. Now we have had a lot of talking. Now it's time for do some playing, Garrett.
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to put another link in here. And so this is a link to this video that you're seeing on the screen right now. Just to give you a little backdrop before we get into it. One of our responses like many organizations, to COVID and this distance learning, was that we wanted to help provide curated activities for parents to have activities with their children. And this isn't just put every activity that we could find and have contributions, but we had the likes of Sesame Street, Playful Learning Lab, and some other organizations contribute these activities that we vetted to see if they had those 5 characteristics of learning through play, and see if they could help promote holistic learning skills. This link that we have down in the chat here is to one of those activities that we're calling co-drawing. And so I'm going to let you watch that video. I'm going to shut up for a bit and then let you watch that video, and then we'll come back and we're actually going to do this activity at a distance. Okay, thank you. All right, so how's everybody doing? Video over. Hope I'm not being premature. All right, cool. Thanks, Eileen. Okay, so now we're going to go into the actual activity itself, and you're wondering, how are we possibly going to do this? That's a great question, and this is the part where we're totally okay with being a little wobbly here. However, we trust that you all can do this. So, Ola, if we can get that next slide after the video, if we can get that up on the screen, I want people to get inspired by some ideas of ways that we've done this in the past, or done activities like this in the past. This is a really important part of this transition, and it's not just about taking the way we've always done things before COVID and just migrating them to a website. Many times what it is us leveraging these digital technologies, and sometimes it doesn't even have to be digital, but find ways in which you can actually go through and prepare these activities to be done at a distance. So I'm just going to go through these pictures just to give you a little bit of inspiration. And then after we go through that, we're going to divide each of you into groups of 3, so that you're going to have 3 of you. And what you're going to do is you're going to do that activity, that co-drawing, or what has traditionally been called an exquisite corpse, which is that you take pieces of a problem and each of you kind of feed off of each other. But we're going to do this, okay? So I wanted to inspire you. If you look up at this top picture on the screen right now, this is one of our, Ola and I's a former colleague and a great friend of ours, Amos Blanton. One of the things he was working on over the summer was how do we actually share activities, not just you looking at my face, but also have the opportunity, and if I can find my own screen here, use interesting technology so that you can see what I'm building, okay? So even just a reflection off my phone, you can start to see my hands. And what Amos did there is he would find clever ways using materials around you. So he found some reflective surface that's that little demi-lune kind of half circle thing that's a mirror. Put it on a paper clip and then put it on a clothespin and put it on his laptop or his iPad, so that half the screen would be split so you could see what he was doing with his hands. Okay, so what I'm getting at is you can find ways to do this exquisite corpse. So for example, on the top right there, that's Padlet. You can use Padlet to come up with these activities or find ways to share ideas in groups. Down below on the right, going clockwise here, this is the Google Workspaces. So you can use Google Docs just to say, okay, we're gonna share this in a Google Doc. How about we find a way to take this exquisite corpse? We'll open up a Google Doc. You draw a picture of the top space of this person, take that, upload it to that Google Doc, and then the next person puts their picture in, okay? This is what you're gonna do in a moment when we break into our groups of 3, just to give you a heads up, you can use Google Docs. We also wanted to show something really inspirational and really aspirational on many levels. This child here sitting on the bottom here, what he's working with there is Scratch, which is this online interface for children to learn how to code using essentially puzzle pieces, okay? And so these young children are learning the fundamentals of programming or coding. And in this example, what he did was he combined it with a chain reaction, a Rube Goldberg, if you will, where a ball was rolling down, could be either a cardboard tube, and when it rolled down, it hit an electric circuit, which was connected to his computer, which when it did that, it made a video play on his computer. And what we're getting at is this line between you and I sitting outside of these little boxes, these screens that we sit in, especially in Zoom when we're a queue or a grid, is that we can actually take this technology and take it further. And that what I do in my space, my physical space, can actually affect what your physical space does as well. Now that's amazing, right? All that being said, what I would like for you to do, and Danny's gonna help us here by getting you into groups of 3, is to do what that code drawing activity was, which is to create a figure. There's gonna be 3 of you, right? So create a top half of an image. It would be nice if you did this in sequence. Somebody draw either within a Google Doc or Jamboard or Miro, whatever technology that you decide on. And this is the part where it's gonna get wobbly, and that's okay. To create that top third, and then the next person creates the middle third, and then the last person creates that last third. And we're gonna give you roughly 10 minutes or so, maybe 15, 10 minutes to go out and make this happen, okay? So Danny, everybody, you're gonna be okay. We're not gonna be in there to micromanage you. Some of you are gonna make mistakes, some of you are gonna nail this, doesn't matter, give it a shot. Danny, if you could help divide us into groups of 3 people in each, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
We'll be back here in, when will we be back?
10 minutes?
10 minutes. Great.
Yeah. Well, I'll welcome them back and ask them to post anything that they can share. And then you want to jump into the distance learning after we start a little discussion?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, Eileen. Hi, Claire. Welcome back, everyone. Hi, Sue. Was that crazy? Feel free to unmute.
That was the best fun I've had in ages, Garrett.
Yeah.
Well, my 2 colleagues both managed, and I thought I was being technically clever, and I just completely knocked up my head.
Sue's had a lovely backdrop noise of ducks going off on
I've got 3 ducks going mad in the background, just completely. And the ones stay in the water, they keep coming out the pond. How do you keep them in the pond?
So it's working. Now it's working.
It's my last day of isolation. I've had the most nuts week, and this is just one way to end it. Now that one keeps it behind the letter, it won't come out.
Well, everybody, as everybody's coming in, I'm guessing some will stagger in a little bit later after the trauma of trying to get the duck situation figured out, amongst many things. Now, here's another important part of this process is how do you then share the products in which you've developed? So please, if you created a Google Doc or a Padlet, or if you had some images, please use the chat below to share those so that everybody can take a look at those. We can talk about what that process looks like, because that introduces a lot of difficulties as well. How do you take something on your phone and put it into a chat room here? I want to tell a quick little anecdote, and then we're going to move on to the next piece. Ola is a rock star, literally, and the Lego Idea Conference that we have once a year, one of the workshops we had was they created improv music for, was it an hour or 90 minutes, Ola?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and one of our colleagues, Casper, had GarageBand, which is a music editing software. And at one point, they asked the 40, 50 people who were logged in through Zoom to start sharing audio clips so that they can mix it together with the live music they were playing. When that first started, everybody looked at Casper as if that was a nuts idea. And it ended up being one of the highlights of the whole conference because people hacked it and figured out how to do it. And it became this magical experience. So that being said, it looks like we have Rosie is sharing a Google Doc of one of the activities. Oh, by the way, I do have an extra visitor. It's morning time here, so my daughter Lila is joining.
Okay.
Rose, it looks like we need to request access, so we're going to be, this is Garrett, so people are going to be able to. This is another part of collaboration, is setting up how documents can be shared afterwards, giving permissions and things like that. So like I said, some of this is a wobble and some of this is a learning opportunity for if you're going to do things that are ambitious like this, how do you then actually execute them? So if you can, all of you are coming in. Rose shared her Google Doc involving the exquisite corpse. We have some people, it looks like Anna, that's a great idea. You can literally just turn your screen if you want to share that document. Here's a breakout. Yeah, here we go.
I just shared Adam's group's drawings from the Padlet.
Oh, fab.
Looks
You
awesome.
did drawings within the digital space. That's great. See, now you can move those and put those together. So all of you are coming in. We're going to move into the next piece, but if you can, please take a moment to share those documents into the chat room so that we can move forward and everybody can see what other people were up to. Okay, so, and Andrea says we may be running over. We allowed space to happen and for people to create, but Ola is going to take off on a really important document that the LEGO Foundation created recently. Go ahead, Ola.
Yeah, so sorry for running a bit late, but we have, as a part of our COVID-19 response, developed a distance learning guide. So this is literally best practices, cases, examples from teachers, parents across the world, how to address the homeschooling and the situations around that. And they came down with these kind of 4 guiding principles on what to be looking for when developing distance learning with children. And the guide is also available. We'll share a link and feel free to dive into that later on. We'll also share this presentation with you. So we'll jump a bit quickly through this. It is pretty self-explainable when we get there. There's a couple of videos on how we approach these kind of guiding principles in the programs that we made as a response to the COVID-19. So, for example, we have our colleague from the Lego Idea Studio involved with a project in Denmark called Sofaskolen, the couch school, and they developed a community with children building Denmark's biggest school photo, and a lot of bunch of these activities that you can dive into and look closer into when we're done here. So we have talked a bit about the characteristics of play, but I also want to touch upon the spectrum of play facilitation. So a piece we did together with the University College here in Denmark, teachers training, was to look into what kind of formats and approaches has been used as a part of the lockdown and the reopening. And what I think was a natural but also a bit disappointing result from that search was the mapping showed a lot of scholastic, very traditional schooling, just on Teams or on Zoom, and very non-engaging and not very meaningful for children to play along with. And as we talked about earlier on, this is really about creating intention and concentration, and how to build a learning environment digitally that support children to engage and have communities that's active and relations to be created. So these kind of this spectrum of play is not saying that one side of the spectrum is more relevant or better than the other, but it's really to have that spectrum in play when you design your activities with children. And we will be having a lot of best practices and cases and curricular activities coming out from that university project or university college project within the next couple of months. That's pretty exciting. This was also a project from the SOFA School where they worked with fractions and children and how to design artwork using fractions, but you can look at the video later on. A last piece I want to dive into is our social emotional learning MOOC that we have developed together with leading partners in the field. We have worked with Cambridge, the Padlet lab at Cambridge University, together with EASL lab at Harvard University and University of Notre Dame, and together with the MHPSS collaborative in Denmark. And on FutureLearn, you can find, we will link to that as well. You can find a totally free course, a 9 weeks course on how to help children coping or help parents and caregivers and teachers help the children coping with changes. And some of these guiding principles align very well with the things we saw in the technology and P spectrum, the technology play, children and play report. So this to have these resources being adaptable and practical and play-based, holistic, and first and foremost being sensitive to the local context and the circumstances that each of the communities are in when developing these kind of learning situations. The video you can take a look at later on, but now we will have like a very brief session, or should we just open it up, Garrett? We are over time.
Yeah, I figured we're over time, but we could get it started and we can leave. Everybody can leave this open so we can visit these guiding questions around distance learning. But if you leave it open, you can keep contributing, and then you can come back to it later on in the day or the week, if you will. We'll leave it open.
Yeah. But okay. As a part of the distance learning guide, we have these kind of 9 guiding questions at the end. And what we could encourage you to do was to dive into one of these questions, or take a look at it, what fit you best, or what is most relevant for your context, and then then share a short some brief reflections on what you think about this and how it fits to your context. Garrett just shared the Padlet link, and so I think this will be like the goodbye from our side, right? And we will leave the Padlet open for everybody to contribute to, and we'll take a look at it and use it for later discussions.
Yeah, thanks. So I put that link down in the chat to the Padlet, and what we can do, and Danny's going to help us set this up, but it's okay because we're all going to be viewing the same document, but there are 9 different categories. You can see them all indicated with what are bullets, but they're actually just little images. So we would like for you to go into groups for these 9 different groups, and for you to tackle one of these questions as a group. I know many of you are leaving, and that's fine. But what we're getting at is you can go in and investigate and explore these questions, because these are the guiding questions for distance learning. So like Ola said, please visit that Padlet. We'll be going in there. You can drop off comments and questions if you'd like. Feel free to contribute and add to our understanding and hopefully your understanding of distance learning in this time.
And all resources that we have addressed in this presentation is available online on our website, legofoundation.com. And we'll also share the links together with the presentation from this session with you later on today.